Alright y'all, we're back on Spooky J's Homebrew How-To. And for all of my game masters out there, or even prospective game masters, whether you've written binders or you've never actually led a session, I have a good option here for you. I like to call them arena-style maps. You know, it's a solid location, doesn't have to necessarily move place to place in your adventure, though it can be a recurring or one-shot location for you to set your scene. Me personally, I love writing in the modern context, but understand what I'm talking about here applies to high adventure, high fantasy, all the way through space, fair, and all of the above. So apply it as you will. The example I have laid out here for us today, it's a little tavern if you're playing in an old world context, and or if you're playing in a modern context, a nice little concert venue. So basically the idea that I like to roll with is laying out a fun sandbox for all of my players to just go nuts in. I like to put out a nice fun canvas for them to lay out all of the creativity that they can muster upon. So one of the things I want to impress about it though is that it doesn't have to be something fantastical. It doesn't have to be intricately detailed down to seeing the last particle on the floor, because all of that can happen in your players' minds. So what I've got here is, one of the most basic ways to go about putting together a map that you can turn around and play directly on. Another way that you could do this is if you had a literal tabletop, you could place various objects to represent the locations within your larger location. That's okay too. We're rolling with what we got. And the fact is, if you want to play, hey, I'm trying to help you out to play on here. So hey, we're in it together. What I've drawn here is just a very, very basic representation of a little concert venue and or small tavern, as we described, for our players to move around in. And so one of the easiest ways that you can turn around and apply this is simply marking where your players are. Let's say player X is standing right alongside the pit for their turn. We have player Y, who just stepped out of the bathrooms over here, and we have player U, who is approaching the bar. There we go. We've just marked their locations, they take their actions, they do their thing, and oh, look, on their turn, player U climbed over the bar, and there they are behind the bar. Super duper simple. But if you're a nerd, a big nerd, an overachiever, and yes, I am calling you Black, Mrs. Kettle, understand that, said Mr. Potts. You could also then turn around and, based on your location, build minis to correspond to different places in your world. See what I'm getting at? And so by the time you've placed your interesting pieces of the world, you figure out, okay, do these interesting pieces do something? For instance, could they search the merch table? Maybe find something for a bonus? Could they maybe find a snack or something to help out their HP over here at the bar? Ooh, gets pretty rough here in the pit. Is that hazardous terrain? Could be. But I can tell you, that stage looks like high ground And those speakers, well, those speakers look like they could be some kind of environmental something going on. Looks like pretty close quarters there in the sound booth, but I'm pretty sure the sound booth probably has something to do with those speakers. And hey, well, you know, maybe if things get too gnarly, well, maybe people might have to take a turn and hide out in the bathroom away from any of the damage or anything going on. So, you know, that sounds like a pretty interesting sandbox, and by the time we drop in some creative players and maybe a creative situation for them to unfold, well, hey, that's a pretty good one-shot. At that, if they have a lot of fun at it, you can hang on to that map, either redraw it or keep your minis there, throw it back down. Maybe your players revisited that location. You know, all of this is to say, it's really about the creativity you have. If you got a D20, you got some cool friends, got some cool ideas, you can game. You can game to the highest levels. Alright, y'all. That's this round. I'll see you next round.